Welcome to the course. In this course, we will introduce you to CodeMapper, a vital tool for managing medical terminology across different data sources. CodeMapper is designed to address the challenge of disparate vocabularies across different data sources to code diagnosis, medication, and procedures. It facilitates the process of mapping between different vocabularies, and it has a knowledge management system that could capture the decision and edit during the mapping process. CodeMapper automates the mapping process by using Unified Medical Language System, it means UMLS and non-UMLS vocabularies, which will accelerate your workflow for the research. CodeMapper is under development periodically, and this way you can ensure that you have access to the most recent versions of the vocabularies and efficient mapping capabilities. We hope that you find CodeMapper a valuable asset in your research endeavors, and we are looking forward to explore its functionality with you.
When you open CodeMapper, begin by clicking the menu icon in the top left corner and selecting your project. If you're just exploring or want to get familiar with the CodeMapper environment, use the My Test folder in here to safely test the features without affecting project's data. To just explore existing code lists, go to the folder called Main VAC4EU Code List Library. This folder contains all shared procedures and code lists used across VAC4EU projects. You will find an overview of all available code lists with their definition, system name, code list type, the project related to that code list, the status of the code list, and the last modification date. When you hover your mouse over the definition, you can see the abbreviated name for that code list. Currently, there are 660 code lists available. You can sort them by their name, the definition, system, type, and also you can always edit the name of the code list or edit metadata information using the Edit Metadata option in here. So select your code list that you want to edit and click on here. Then you can edit the abbreviated name, the system, code list type, the definition, or projects related to that, and then click on OK. In this folder, you can use the existing code list to edit, or you can create a new code list. For the purpose of this course, I'll use the example of Bell's palsy to create a new code list. So I click on New Mapping. I have to follow the naming convention in VAC4EU. So the naming convention is using the system name. So for Bell's palsy, I use nervous system, that is with N. The abbreviated name for the code list of Bell's palsy is Bell's palsy, which should be in capital letters, and the type of the code list is adverse events of interest. So it's ASI, and the definitions is Bell's palsy. And imagine it is related to project A. So now when I click on OK, you'll be directed to the mapping interface. You have option to use free text to start the mapping or importing a new code list. For this purpose of this chapter, I would like to create a new code list using a free text option. So I prepared a definition for Bell's palsy using some lay terms, synonyms, and codes I knew from ICD-10 and ICD-9. So I will copy paste this definition in here and select on search concepts. The highlighted yellow concepts indicating the concepts found by CodeMapper, they are also shown on the right side in here. You can select or deselect the concept that they are not of your interest. Maybe they are too broad and they will make noises to your mapping. So it's better to unselect the ones that you really think are making noises. In my case, I deselect weakness, peripheral, paresis, mobility finding, and the other two terms that I think are too broad. Whenever you're satisfied with your concept, click on Start with Selected Concepts. Your mapping is now created with 4 main tabs. The first tab is Mapping tab. It shows the UMLS versions of the vocabularies you use. You can choose whether to include descendant codes or not. You can also investigate the versions of the code list. So because we just started this project, it has no previous versions. And you can see in the Creation tab that which definition you use to start the mapping. In the Metadata tab, also you can find the names of the code list and relation and the information for the projects. The second tab is Concept tab that shows all identified concepts from your initial mapping. There's a column here for comments that you can comment on the concept, whether you're tagging it as specific or sensitive, providing your reason. Then the rest of the columns are coding system. When you hover over the code in here, you can see the code name related to each codes. So here we have the concepts, and all the codes under that concept are shown in the line in front of that concept. The third tab is the Code tab. In this tab, you'll find the list of all the codes for the selected coding systems. For the start of this project, we have these coding systems. You can click on ICD-10, find all the codes related to ICD-10 for the Bell's palsy concept. You can use this filter to specifically search for a specific term. For example, you're searching for facial, and you can narrow down your research by searching for a specific terminology. After investigating the codes tab, the fourth and last tab is the coding system tab, which displays all coding systems involved in your mapping. To make our code list comprehensive, let's start with coding system tab. Here we have the standard option. By clicking on a standard, you can browse UMLS and non-UMLS coding system integrated in CodeMapper. You can use the search bar in here or scroll down to select your coding systems. In this example, I would like to select ICD-10, ICD-10 different versions, ICD-10 Danish, which is a non-UMLS vocabulary imported, ICD-9, and then I will click on Add Selected. If you are using a non-UMLS vocabulary, for instance, a local coding system that is not yet supported by CodeMapper, you can customize it by using Custom option in here. You first need to enter an identifier for this non-UMLS vocabulary. In my example, it is ICD-9-CMP, which stands for exemption codes in Italy. When you click on Create, a new coding system will now appear in your coding system tab with the asterisk near it. It means this is customized. Now that you included all the relevant coding system, we are ready to begin reviewing the codes and concepts. Now let's start reviewing the mapping. To do so, we go to the Concept tab. This is where your clinical insight become important. Please note that the review I'm about to demonstrate is only for teaching purposes and may not reflect a clinically validated decision. For example, the concept facial paralysis and facial paralysis are quite broad in the context of Bell's palsy. So I'll select them. I can click on Tag Codes and tag them as possible. Once I click on OK, all the codes under those concepts took the tag of possible. Sometimes a concept might be too broad or even irrelevant. In that case, you have three options. For example, this concept facial nerve disease might be too broad, so you select it. One option is to delete this concept. The other is to tag it as exclude or ignore. If you delete the concept, it will be entirely removed from your mapping and you'll lose traceability of having reviewed it. So fortunately, we have the option undo here. So I undo what I did. Now the code is back here with all the codes under this concept. So I select it and I can tag it as exclude or ignore. If you tag them as exclude or ignore, it stays in the code list and showing that you have reviewed the codes, but you were not interested and tagged as exclude. The difference between exclude and ignore is covered in detail in the study variables course.
You should continue this tagging process for all concepts. As we move forward, for example, Bell's palsy and peripheral facial palsy are specific, so I'll tag them as narrow. Also, the two remaining concepts, facial nerve injury as birth trauma and the concept below that, to me, it looks both possible, so I tag them as possible. As you can see, tagging a concept applies the tag of that concept to all codes under that concept. However, sometimes the level of details varies across coding systems, so you might want to tag a specific code differently from the rest of the codes under that group concept. So now that we have finished tagging all the concepts in this concept tab, we offer reviewing the tagging at the code level to ensure that the codes took the correct tag. So the recommended workflow is as first tag at the concept level, then move forward to the codes tab to review the individual codes per coding systems. If needed, you can adjust the tags at the code level to better reflect the relevances. As an example, I remind you here that this is not clinically true. This is just as an example. So, for example, facial weakness, if it should be narrow, but it took the tag of possible based on the concept tagging, I would like to change the tag to narrow. So you can individually choose that code, change the tag from possible to narrow, and click OK. Now, let's say that you have forgotten to include the concept, but there's no problem. You can always, in the concept tab, use the search bar here to search for the missing keyword, synonym, or codes that you don't find in this list. For example, Bell's palsy have different spellings. As you can see here is without comma and S after Bell, but sometimes it is written as Bell's palsy like that. So I will write it here and click on search. So the CodeMapper will bring you with the remaining concept that was not in the first and initial mapping. So we can review those. You can see there are codes for Snowman and Metcode related to these concepts. And if they are relevant, you can choose all of them or bulk of them and add selected concepts. And of course, you should now review the concept and assign tag to them. For example, I want all of them to be tagged as narrow. And again, you can go back to the code tab and review the codes. And you can see, oh, they are missing tags here, so you can assign tags to each code. We can also navigate concepts hierarchies to expand or refine your mapping. Let's say the concept facial nerve disease in here. You can click on narrower to search for more descendant code. You can see there are many descendant codes under different coding systems for this concept. So you can clinically review and select the ones related and add them to your mapping.
We continue this process until you're confident that your code list is complete and specific. You can navigate the hierarchy of the codes in here to search for broader concepts or narrower concepts. You continue this process until you have everything you need there. Now, let's discover other functionalities by moving to the Code tab. You'll remember that we created a coding system ICD-9 CMP in here, which was a custom coding system for exemption codes in Italy. Now it's time to assign codes to this coding system. So first we need to filter on ICD-9 CMP coding system and then click on Custom Codes Create option. You can enter the code you want. In my case, it's 7.414. And the code name is facial nerve palsy, which I have to write in here. And then I have to link this to an existing concept from the mapping I have. Clinically, the closest concept related to facial nerve palsy is facial nerve disease. So I click on that and click on Create. Now you can see the facial nerve palsy code with the asterisk near that shows that this code is customized. Now you can see that this is how we review, refine, and expand our code list using the concept and code tab functionalities. And this is how we use the CodeMapper tool to expand the mapping. In this tutorial, we'll walk you through how to review an existing code list in CodeMapper. For the purpose of this tutorial, I use AIDS code list as an example. When you open the mapping, you land on Mapping tab. Here, you can navigate through several sub-tabs. The Configuration tab is where you determine whether the code list will be downloaded with or without additional unreviewed descendants codes, which are not expanded in the initial mapping. You can check or uncheck this option depending on how the authors initially reviewed the code list. As a general rule, for ASI code lists or pregnancy algorithms related code lists, we usually do not include additional unreviewed descendants code because these lists are reviewed in details and already contains all relevant descendants codes. If we check this box to include additional descendants, these additional unreviewed descendants will take the tag of their parents' codes automatically and may lead to misclassification. But for covariate code lists, the opposite applies. We typically do include descendants to create broader definition. However, these rules are not fixed and may vary depending on specific study objectives. In the Configuration tab, you'll also see the Remap option. This becomes active if a new version of the dictionary has been introduced since the mapping was created. Clicking this will automatically update your mapping to the newer vocabulary version. In this code list, it seems that since the last mapping, the UMLS vocabulary has not been updated, and so this option is not active. The next subtab is Metadata tab, which displays the metadata information related to the code list. You can always edit this information, for example, by adding or removing project from the list. The next tab is Versions, which includes the history of the code list versions, author's name, the date of the changes, and brief explanations of the modification applied. And the last tab is Creation, which shows the original free text definition used to create the mapping. As explained earlier, the Concept tab displays how codes are grouped under concepts across different coding systems. If all codes under a concept share the same tag, the concept will inherit that tag. The concept will appear untagged if tags under that concept are inconsistent, or sometimes codes are left untagged. For example, the concept HIV infection appeared untagged because some of the codes under this concept are tagged as narrow and the others as possible and exclude. In such a case, you have to hover over the codes to see the full name for each code and see if the tags are assigned properly. If you find any mistake in here, you have to choose that code that you think the tag is inappropriate. For example, in this case, I see this code is tagged as possible, however, it should be tagged as narrow. So I remember that this code is under metcode ID coding system. I copy this, I go to the code tab, filter on the coding system metcode, and search this code. So I see that this tag is possible, but I have to change it to narrow. And this is the process I follow. Now, let's go back to the Concept tab. You may notice that some codes appear with a strict through in either the Concept or Code tab. These are disabled codes. Disabled codes are typically suggested by CodeMapper when importing code lists from external systems like SharePoint. These codes were not part of the original mapping, but have automatically identified by CodeMapper as a potential relevant codes. To include them in the main mapping, you have to select the disabled codes, review them, and tag them accordingly. First, you need to enable. So you see that the strict through over them are removed, and now it's time to tag them. If you leave them with a strict through on them, this code will not be included in the downloaded code list, potentially reducing the coverage. When you're done with your review, you can click on the Save icon in here. You have to provide a summary of the changes you've made. In this example, for example, codes for HIV with symptoms are tagged as narrow. And you have to save this. So now you are ready to download the code list. Beside the Save icon, you have the Download icon. When you click on that, you have two options. First is to download the code list, and the second one is to download the metadata information related to this code list. All the downloads will be in CSV format. To export a full code list, follow these steps. Go to the main VAC4EU code list library. Use the project filter to display only the code list assigned to your project. As an example, I choose RSV maternal. Then you can select all relevant code lists by ticking the checkbox. Before downloading, make sure to review the configuration setting of each mapping, specifically whether the code list should be downloaded with or without descendants codes. Once you're ready, in the top right corner, click on the download icon. By clicking on downloading code list, you will download the full code list. And by clicking on mapping metadata, we can download the metadata information related to each code list, including the information on coding system used in each mapping, the versions of the coding systems, and the link to the mapping. Also, you can find out whether each code list is downloaded with unreviewed descendants code or not. Downloading a large number of code lists may take some time, so please be patient while the system prepares your file. The exported file will be in CSV format and will serve as the main input for the next step in your study pipeline. Remember that CodeMapper is an evolving tool, so we continuously introducing new features, updating coding systems, and support integrating non-UMLS vocabularies, such as different versions of CPRD. And quality control checks are always on the way to improve the reliability and accuracy of the exported full code list.
As you move forward, remember that CodeMapper is a dynamic tool and it continuously updated to meet the evolving need. We hope that you feel confident in using CodeMapper to enhance your research and data management process. Now that you're familiar with CodeMapper, if you encountered an issue, please report it in CodeMapper GitHub repository. Thank you for participating in this course and good luck with your future endeavors.